All right. Hey, everybody.
Welcome to episode 4.
We're having some technical difficulties today, but I think we can make it through the podcast.
Yeah, and you might hear some weird background noises. We don't know what's going on. We keep hearing this water gurgling noise happening and maybe a band playing. So
Probably paranormal.
you might get a treat. In another treat, unless she chickened out, I think Faren's going to tell us a story today.
I'm going to try. It's not the story that I want to tell, but my notes aren't ready for the story that I want to tell.
All right. Well, before we get started, so last week we talked about Israel Keys.
Mm-hmm.
Remember he buried murder kits?
Yes.
Well, I was Googling his name the other day so I could find a picture to put onto our social media.
Mm-hmm.
And an article popped up from October 8th that said that they found another one.
Oh.
Yeah, in Louisiana.
Well.
Yeah, it was an article in the St. Charles Herald Guide that said that they dug up a murder kit with 3 knives, rope, razor blades, and duct tape. And it says that it was corroborated by witness accounts, an FBI timeline of Key's movements, and a map on Key's computer with a circle and a number 2 around the... Oh, man. You know how Louisiana has a bunch of French words?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I look at this word and I say bonnet.
Bonnet?
Maybe. But it's 2 N's. Is it bonnet?
I don't know.
Anyway, the bonnet or bonnet carre spillway. But anyway, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So they're hoping that maybe that will start snowballing and they'll find other ones.
Well, don't worry. My story also has words that I cannot pronounce in it, so.
That sounds like every week for me. Anyway. So also thank you to everyone who has listened and subscribed to our first couple of episodes. We have this really cool map on our website that shows us who's listening, or at least where they're listening from. And we've got 4 countries now. We've got the United States, Australia, the UK, and Canada. And we've got listeners in 13 states in the United States.
Yeah, pretty fancy.
So if you guys have friends, you should tweet about us.
Should let them know about us.
Or Instagram about us.
We've got all of those social media thingies.
Yeah, I said tweet. I know it's not tweet anymore.
Well,
and
what do you call it now? I mean, there has to be a word.
No friggin' clue. I did break down and sign up for an X account. So we are on X now. So if you want to find us there, because I know that that's where lots of people are. Although I have to say, X is not a happy place.
No.
So I go on Threads and I search for true crime podcasts or whatever. And it's all of these people that are like, hey, give us suggestions on your favorite podcast and all of these things. Let's support other podcasts, just happy things.
Mm-hmm.
You go on X and you search the same things and it's like a bunch of negative Nancys. It's all people that are like, why does everybody need a true crime podcast? And people who have true crime podcasts or listen to them are unhinged. And it's just...
Thank you.
It's a very unhappy place. So anyway, we have one for the podcast, but we're not going to personally use it. We'll just update stuff for the podcast on there.
Just another way of reaching out to people.
That's right. And then lastly, and it's something that I mean to do every single time that we start one of these, but I did want to thank Johnny Chandler, who has very generously allowed us to use his equipment to record our podcast on every week. He's been super supportive of our podcast since we met him, and he's just really great for allowing us to use his equipment until we can get our own.
Yep, and he's very helpful, so.
Absolutely. All right, well, do you want to tell us a story?
I'm going to try. I'm not great at telling stories, but.
Yeah, you're great at telling stories. What are you talking about?
No, I bounce around all over the place, and I have a hard time keeping information straight, so.
Have you met me? Also... You are really good at telling stories. Is it about the chupacabra? Because you're especially good at telling those stories.
No, it is a religious miracle case.
All right.
So not quite the chupacabra.
Well, maybe next time.
Maybe. So first off, I want to preface this by apologizing if I pronounce any of these Portuguese words wrong. They're not especially complicated Portuguese words, but I just don't know how people pronounce things in Portuguese.
I don't know how people pronounce things in American, so.
Right. And second of all, it's a lot about Catholicism, and I literally know nothing about Catholicism. So if I get something wrong, please be gentle. So with all of that being said, this is the story of the Miracle of Fatima, or the Miracle of the Sun.
Okay, interesting.
So this story takes place in 1917 in Fatima, Portugal. At this time, World War I was raging on, and Portugal tried to remain neutral during the war, but they eventually ended up siding with the Allies. Approximately 220,000 Portuguese civilians died during the war, thousands of whom died due to food shortage, while thousands of others died due to the Spanish flu, which was also on the rampage during this time. So lots of icky stuff going on all at once.
Yeah. I know a lot about World War II, kind of. I don't ever remember what World War I was about. Do you?
Not particularly.
Well, all right.
World War II is the one that people talk about the most because of,
Genocide.
yes, Nazis and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I really don't know a whole lot about World War I as it is.
No. I mean, obviously it was a big deal because it was the whole world, apparently.
Yes.
But
anyway, so lots of icky things going on all at once. A handful of years earlier in 1910, a revolution led to the establishment of the first Portuguese republic, and a liberal constitution was written that wanted religious faith suppressed from the public.
okay.
The Catholic churches and schools were seized by the government, and practices such as ringing church bells and publicly celebrating religious holidays were banned.
Interesting.
So you couldn't even do basic religious things out in public.
Which is wild because our timeline is religion is just being constantly shoved down your
Right.
throat. Yeah.
That's what I thought too. I thought it was weird that they wanted to secularize everything instead of, religiousize.
Right. Because, we've got a bunch of leaders right now that are talking Christian nationalism.
Right.
So,
Trying to make religion a part of everyday life and everybody's life and school and whatnot. But
right.
here they're, trying to shut that down in public.
Yeah.
So nearly 2,000 monks and nuns were killed by anti-Christian groups.
Wild.
And all of this is just sort of set the mood of what was going on at this time, as well as being slightly relevant to this as the story unfolds, but it's not highly relevant to the story itself.
History.
Yes. So back to 1917, on May 13th of that year, 3 shepherd children, Lucia dos Santos and her cousins Francisco and Jacinta Marto, and I've seen their ages disputed on lots of different sources, but everything says they were between the ages of 6 and 10.
It's a little.
So just little dudes. They were either tending to their family's sheep, which was a custom, or playing on a property owned by Lucia's family in Cova de Iria, when they all claimed to have seen 2 flashes like lightning and a woman, quote, dressed in all white, more brilliant than the sun and indescribably beautiful appeared to them.
Okay.
She was reportedly neither sad nor happy, but serious, holding her hands at her chest as if she were praying, with a rosary in her right hand and a mild air of reproach. Now, prior to seeing this, back in the spring of 1916, the children reportedly saw visions of an angel. I've read of it as the angel of peace and the angel of Portugal. And I think they had 3 visions of this angel in 1916. The angel was supposed to have kneeled before them and asked them to pray with him. The purpose of these visits was supposed to prepare them for the following visions of the brightly lit lady and to teach them about sacrifice, offerings, and prayer.
Okay, so before they saw the lady that was being reproachful, they saw this other one?
Yeah, the year before, they saw an angel, and I think they saw it 3 times that spring.
Okay. And it's funny, I was just thinking about, all I know about Catholicism is that they all seem very reproachful.
Yes.
So
Not super joyful.
no, it doesn't seem like a joyful religion. I'm not trying to
To knock
insult
anything.
anybody's
It just seems like a
religion.
very serious religion.
It does. We used to go to a Catholic
Yes.
church with our dad sometimes, and so it was very serious.
Yes, it was always way more serious than going to church with our moms at just a regular Christian church.
Yeah.
But anyway, so on her first visit, the lady would ask them if they were prepared to suffer in order to make reparations for the sins of man.
Okay.
These just wee little guys.
Yeah. That's a lot of pressure for me
Yes.
at 42.
Yes.
So,
So the visions of this lady, who would later be identified as the Lady of the Rosary, a.k.a. the Virgin Mary,
okay.
would appear to them 5 more times on the 13th of each month around noon for the following 5 months. So the children never revealed to anybody about the angel that they had seen the following year, but Jacinta told her mother about this brightly lit lady that they saw, and her mother didn't believe her and told the neighbors about it as a joke.
Poor kids.
And by that day, everybody knew about these visions that the children were having.
Yeah, but all thinking of it as like these kids are just telling tales.
I guess it just really depends because this eventually catches on.
Oh, okay. So the mom doesn't believe them.
The mom doesn't believe them,
but she's telling people, and they're
and
like,
now everybody in town knows. So there's skeptics, there's believers, there's what have you. So the vision told them to return on the 13th of the following month, and Jacinta's mother consulted the local priest, Father Ferreira, I think, about the situation. He told her to let them go, but to have Lucia brought to him afterwards to be questioned. Lucia would reveal that the Lady of the Rosary told them that Francisco and Jacinta would soon go to heaven, but that she was to live a long life to spread the message and devotion to her Immaculate Heart, and that Jesus wanted Lucia to make her more known and loved. The Lady of the Rosary, that is.
So they're saying 2 of the kids are going to die?
Yeah.
Oy. Okay.
And they're, like I said, all around the age of 10 or younger.
Right, they're little.
So
yeah. How that would be so scary.
Right. So she told them that Jacinta and Francisco were going to be going to heaven soon, but that she was going to live a long life so that she could spread the word.
Okay. They're putting a lot of pressure on these kids.
They really are. She said that they would all go to heaven, but that Francisco would have to pray many rosaries first. She also told Lucia to learn how to read and come back so that she could better understand what she wanted of her. So after Francisco heard that he was going to die soon and that he needed to pray a lot to go to heaven, it said that he lost interest in school and would spend time praying at church instead.
Well, I mean, what else would you do? If I got told that I was about to die, like I wouldn't want to go to work.
And from all accounts that I could read, he wasn't really like sad about it. He was just very serious about it. Like, it would say one source that I saw said that the girls would be going to school and they'd be like, "Hey, come on, Francisco." And he'd be like, "No, you guys go. I'm going to go to church."
Yeah. Again, it's just a lot of pressure.
Right. It is. And I also read that when he was on his deathbed, that he had gotten so weak that he couldn't pray anymore. And so he was like panicking because he couldn't pray. And so he was worried that he wasn't going to go to heaven. And so he had his cousin and his sister pray for him. And he said that he was praying inside of himself while they were praying outwardly.
That's very sad.
Yeah.
That's just very sad. So he did die.
He does eventually die.
Oh, that's really sad.
But not quite yet.
Okay.
They've still got several visits to go.
Okay.
He would go to church instead of going to school, and it's also stated that many of the people who asked him to pray with them received gifts of grace. I also found it interesting that one of the sources that I found said that he was the only one who could not hear the messages that they were getting. He could see the visions, but he couldn't hear anything she was saying, so the girls would have to relay to him everything that she said.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
But he was like the most like affected by it seems like.
Yeah, because he was the one. The same source that was saying that he had like started to panic when he couldn't pray, he had asked the girls to basically confess for him.
Oh.
And so basically all they could say were like little pranks that he did and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like he didn't do anything bad.
Because he wasn't a bad kid, yeah.
And so he thought he wasn't going to go to heaven because of these pranks and stuff that he had pulled as a little boy.
That's just incredibly sad.
During the third visit on July 13th, she continued to emphasize the importance of daily praying of the rosary to bring peace to the world and end the war and save souls. She also revealed to them what was to come to be known as the secret, which came in 3 parts. First was a vision of hell where sinners would go if they did not do the things that she asked and devote themselves to her Immaculate Heart. If people did what she said, souls would be saved. The second part predicted World War II and requested the consecration of Russia as a condition of world peace. And in 1944, the third part of the secret was given by Lucia to the Holy See. And if you're like me and have no idea what the Holy See is, it's apparently the central government of the Roman Catholic Church and the diplomatic representative of the Pope, according to Google.
I also did not know what that was.
So like I said, in 1944, she revealed the third part of the secret to the Holy See with instructions that it not be read until 1960.
And again, only these 3 children are seeing this, right?
Right.
Okay.
It's just this girl and her 2 cousins.
Okay.
It was speculated that the secret pertained to chaos in the Catholic Church and widespread loss of faith in the 70s. It was revealed in 2000 and now thought to actually predict the 1981 assassination attempt of Pope John Paul II, who credits Our Lady of Fatima as saving his life because he did get shot.
Wow.
But he didn't die.
Yeah, that's really weird.
So they think that the third part of the secret actually predicted that happening.
Okay.
And I couldn't find, I think I saw it once, but when I went back trying to find exactly what the third part of the secret said, I couldn't find it. But what I can remember is that it did sound kind of like a pope being assassinated.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I couldn't find the source again, so I wasn't able to quote it.
That's still crazy, though.
Yeah. During her third visit, she told the children that on October 13th, she would reveal her identity to them, because at this point, they still don't know that she is the Virgin Mary.
Oh, right. She's just
this brightly lit lady that appears to them.
Okay.
And that she would perform a miracle for everyone to see and believe them.
Okay.
So by this time, thousands of people began to flock to Fatima upon hearing of miracles and the visions. Now, on August 13th, which would be the day the children would go to Cova de Iria to go see the Lady of the Rosary and hear her message, they were intercepted, abducted, and jailed by the provincial administrator, Arthur Santos.
Because they're doing church stuff.
Right. Well, that and because he believed that it was like a political act that was going against the secularization, trying to make people, go against these new rules.
Okay.
And so that's why I mentioned the thing happening in 1910, because that's what he thinks is going on here, that they're just trying to get people to go against the secularization that they have imposed.
Okay. Which, they're three little kids.
Right.
Their political agenda.
Right. Well, that's what I thought about this whole thing, is that, they're three little kids. What use would they have to make this up to begin with?
Right.
And I doubt that most 6 to 10-year-olds are out there trying to thwart the government.
Yeah, because when I was 6 to 10 years old, I was just making up stories about what my Barbies are doing.
Right. So he interrogated them and threatened them. And I read on one website that they were threatened to be plunged in boiling oil.
Goodness.
They tried to get them to divulge the contents of the secret, which was the message of the July visit. And even Lucia's mother was hoping that the officials would be able to get the children to admit that they lied and end everything.
So that was their mom.
Yeah, that was Lucia's mom.
I keep thinking they're siblings.
No,
I keep forgetting
two of them
cousins.
are siblings, but the other one is just a cousin.
Okay.
So Lucia told Santos that she would ask the lady if she could tell him the secrets. And due to public uproar, the children were released. And instead of seeing the Virgin as they normally would on the 13th, they instead saw her on the 19th. I also saw that on the day of the 13th, in the place that they normally saw the lady, people who had been flocking there because of, hearing about these miracles or about these visions, that they reported that they saw some strange meteorological phenomena. Thunder and lightning occurred at the usual time that she would appear, as well as a cloud hovering above the same oak tree where the lady normally appeared to the children.
Weird.
Colors were seen to radiate on the faces and clothes of the spectators and across the landscape in that area. The spectators believed that the lady had come, but that she could not find the children.
So if people are flocking to these places, when they know that this is supposed to happen, it's still just the children that are seeing her?
At this point, yes.
Okay. Until now, when these people saw this weird
they saw
stuff.
this, and this I as far as I can tell, is the first time that people saw anything out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Because I didn't read anything about other people seeing weird stuff any of the other times, and I don't know if people had come before this time.
Oh, okay. I see what you're
because
saying.
at this point, thousands of people have begun flocking, but I don't know how many people were really taking the pilgrimage there prior to this.
Oh, okay.
But on the 19th, the same mysterious atmospheric changes that usually preceded her visits began to take place on a different property where the children were in Valinos. Realizing that something was about to happen, Lucia fetched Jacinta in time to see the lady appear, once again illuminated by bright light. She told them once again to continue to pray for the sinners so that they wouldn't go to hell, and to continue to make many sacrifices for them. And I saw on one source that some of the sacrifices that the children made included wearing tight cords tied around their waist to cause pain.
Oh.
And not being able to drink water on hot days and things like that. And again, these are just little bitty kids.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm not trying to insult anybody's religion, but you see a lot with Catholicism, at least just the very fringe things that I see just being a school or whatever, it's a lot of it is sacrifice, when they give up things for Lent and, that's, I don't know. It does seem very
Sacrifice is like an important thing to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the visit on September 13th was a pretty similar message of encouraging the children to pray and saying that she would come in October to perform a miracle so all would believe them. So that brings us to October, which is supposedly her final visit.
Okay.
And the visit that's supposed to show everyone that this is real.
Okay.
So it was reported that some 70,000 people came to witness this miracle.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. I've read that it's between 30 and 100,000, but I saw on several sources that it was approximately 70,000.
Okay, even 30,000 is a lot.
That's a lot. Both.
And also, just I'm sorry.
It's okay.
When thinking about also, it's like 1917.
Yeah.
So like we were talking about in our first episode, like there's no Facebook.
Right.
It's not like they're posting.
This is all
and
like
saying,
word of mouth at this point.
And how hard it is to get places. Like it's 1917, they don't have cars.
Yeah, and it's probably in like rural Portugal as well. Like it doesn't sound like they live in like the city or anything.
So that's a lot of people.
Because these are shepherd people, and so
even if it was 10,000, I would think it was a lot of people.
But yeah, it's estimated that about 70,000 people, believers and skeptics alike, traveled through torrential rain and mud to bear witness. According to some accounts, a veil covered the sun, making it easy to look at. It whirled rapidly and cast multicolored lights across the people and landscape before beginning to plunge towards the earth.
Terrifying.
Many people feared that this was the end of the world.
I would.
But then the sun suddenly reversed its course and began to zigzag back up to its usual position.
Is this a UFO?
I don't know. I think the first time I actually heard about this was on Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, because when you were talking about like the meteor activity or whatever a minute ago, I was thinking aliens.
Yeah. But no, I think the very first time I heard of this case might have been on Ancient Aliens.
Okay.
Because they do a lot of like religious things on there.
Yeah, they do.
And so I think that's where I heard of this the first time. But I've always just found it fascinating. But anyway, so it began to zigzag back up to its usual position. It was reported that the once wet, muddy ground they had been standing on became completely dry, as well as the wet clothing of the spectators. Not everyone reports seeing the same things, however. Some say they only saw the colors, while others, including some believers, saw absolutely nothing.
That's strange.
No scientists reported seeing anything unnatural. It has been suggested that those who report seeing the visions were due to the extreme suggestibility of the spectators.
Yeah.
Optical effects caused by natural meteorological phenomena, or temporary retinal distortion from staring at the sun.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, like, you don't see meteors during the day.
Well, and it wasn't necessarily meteors. It was just weird stuff happening in the sky.
But still, you don't really see weird stuff happening in the sky in the daytime, though.
Yeah, it was all, like, reported to the sun, and then there was, like, colors emanating everywhere, and...
I mean, I guess, like, yeah, when you stare at the sun, like, but I don't know. It sounds very bizarre.
Yeah, so that was pretty much all that I've read about the final visit. I don't remember there being any, like, specific message coming from the lady.
Okay. So she was just coming
just
to,
showing
like,
everyone.
Uh-huh.
I think that she does tell them, during that visit that she is the Lady of the Rosary. Mm-hmm. She is the Virgin Mary, all of that. And then all of this stuff happens.
Okay.
And since that was her last visit, as she had told them, the children were grilled repeatedly about the visions afterwards. Some people wanted to know why the war didn't end and things like that. And they would just basically tell them, we don't know why, but this is what we were told.
Right. And we're little children.
Right. And so their stories stayed the same. Mm-hmm. Now, Francisco died of the Spanish flu in 1919, so just 2 years later, followed by his sister Jacinta in 1920. Lucia, however, became a Carmelite nun and died at the age of 97.
Wow.
So this lines up with what they were told in the second message, where the lady reportedly told them that Francisco and Jacinta would be taken to heaven soon, but that Lucia would live a long life spreading the message and devoting her life to the Lady of the Rosary.
Right. And one, like, if you want to look at it as like a skeptic, whatever, she probably did go on to spread the message because she had been, told this, or like thought that she had been told this or whatever. And then, I mean, the Spanish flu was going on, and so it was probably common for children.
Yeah, I think what I read was that at about the age of 14 is when she started doing different, like, nun things, but that she eventually became a Carmelite nun, and that's where she devoted the rest of her life. And
yeah,
She wrote books. She was allowed to write books about her life because so many people had questions. Even, many years later, almost 100 years later, people still had questions. And so she was given permission to write books about her account.
Are nuns not usually allowed to write books?
I don't know. I guess it probably depends on what order you're in and different stuff like that, because there's so many different kinds of nuns.
Interesting.
And some are more strict than others.
Yeah, because this keeps going back to the first episode, but Terry Clark had quoted from Dead Man Walking, which was written by a nun. And
Right.
so
I don't know. I just know that she had to ask permission to write this book to address people instead of addressing them individually.
Oh, okay.
She asked permission to be able to write this book to just go out and address the people.
Interesting.
So after investigating the credibility of the children's visions, the local bishop approved them as worthy of belief and public devotion. The appearances of the Virgin Mary were also recognized and endorsed by the Vatican. I think it took them a good 10-ish years to do that because they wanted to be very meticulous about it and make sure they weren't, saying yes to something that wasn't true.
Right.
And so I think it took them till about 1930 before they actually said, yes, this is real. And
Okay.
Fatima became the location of one of the most famous Marian shrines in the world and is visited by thousands of pilgrims every year. Scientists, skeptics, and theologians alike have responded to claims that blatantly contradict established scientific knowledge of the sun. So people saying that these weird things happen to the sun, but, scientists are like, that can't happen to the sun.
Well, right. I mean, no matter whether I've stared at the sun or not, it's never moved around.
Right. So science writer Benjamin Radford was quoted to say, "The sun did not really dance in the sky. We know this because, of course, everyone on Earth is under the same sun. And if the closest lying star to us suddenly began doing celestial gymnastics, a few billion other people would surely have reported it."
Yeah, you would think so. That's why I think it's a UFO.
Right. He too blamed these visions on things such as suggestion, the power of suggestion, and pareidolia, which, is the thing where we see faces and stuff that don't actually have faces.
Yeah.
And so them seeing this woman was just, pareidolia
Okay.
is one of his suggestions.
Okay.
Again, I don't know what it would have benefited these little kids making this up.
I can't imagine. I mean, I know we say that kids today are so much different than we were when we were kids, but I think essentially kids are kids, and I don't think kids really this doesn't sound like a kid thing.
Right. I don't know that they would have taken it this far either, even if they had made up the first one and then so many people believed them that they felt they needed to keep doing it. I don't know that they would have taken it to this extreme.
Well, and I don't know that they could have. I mean, you would have to really put some time into creating a story, and that just seems too I don't know, well put together for it to have been three small children.
But he did say that he's not necessarily saying that it's a hoax or a lie, but it most likely took place in their minds. In response to the miraculous drying of the land and clothing, he said that photographs from this time of the event show that it wasn't raining nearly as much as they reported it raining.
So they weren't as wet. So they dried
he's
faster.
saying that, things could have dried faster because it wasn't nearly as wet as they claimed that it was.
Yeah.
So Francisco and Jacinta were both beatified in 2000, which is when they went ahead and released the secret to the public. Mm-hmm. They did it on their beatification. And
I don't know what that word means.
Okay, hold on. They're the youngest non-martyred children ever to be beatified in the history of the Roman Catholic Church. Beatification is one of the first steps to becoming a saint.
Oh, okay.
And in 2017, on the centennial of the first apparition, they were actually canonized as saints.
Oh, so all three of them?
No, just the youngest two, or the brother and sister, rather, the two that died first.
Oh, okay.
In 2023, however, Lucia was made venerable, which is the first step to becoming a saint.
Okay.
And I read, and again, I don't really know what any of this means because I don't know what the actual process of making someone a saint is, but apparently they waived the 5-year waiting time for her.
Okay.
But she still, to my knowledge, has not been canonized as a saint. And so I don't know what the process is and why she hasn't been.
Yeah. Because I just always assumed that somebody said you were or not somebody, but the Pope.
Just anybody.
Just some guy.
Guy said, well, you're a saint, and now you are.
If that's the case. I have been made a saint.
Exactly.
And I have sainted many people.
Yes.
But yeah, I just assumed I guess I should have known that there was
there's
more
some big process, but I don't actually know what the whole canonization process is to making somebody a saint. But the brother and the sister are saints, and Lucia should eventually become a saint.
I mean, that seems like at the very least they should have been saints.
Right.
Especially the little boy.
Right.
Because he was just really taking that seriously.
Yeah. But that's that. That's the miracle of the sun, or the miracle of Fatima, or...
Wow, that was a really good story.
Yeah, thanks.
I had never heard of that story before.
Yeah, like I said, I think I heard about it on Ancient Aliens years ago, and it's something that's always kind of just fascinated me, because I picture just these 3 little shepherd kids hanging out in a field, and suddenly...
Right. An alien appears before them.
Suddenly some sort of deity or alien or...
Well, ancient alien theorists agree.
Yes.
So I guess if I ever heard of that story, it was on Ancient Aliens, but it didn't stick with me like it did with you. So, well, it was a good one.
Thanks.
Well, everybody, thank you for listening. Hopefully you're still here.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys stick around. Luckily, our mics weren't being as weird as we were worried they were going to be.
Yeah. They're still cutting out a little bit. Hopefully you guys can't hear that. I guess I'll hear when I'm editing, I'll listen and see if we have to record it again. Hopefully not.
Hopefully not, because reactions are always better the first time around.
Absolutely. Please subscribe and rate and review. Nice words, please. If you have any suggestions or stories or otherwise, please email us at twistedandmysteriouspodcast@gmail.com.
Or DM us or tweet us or whatever us.
X us. Don't X us. That sounds terrible.
Yeah,
Let's not call it that.
There really needs to be a word. If it's not going to be Twitter anymore, it can't be tweeting. So I don't know what you would call it.
So Twitter at us, or DM us on Instagram, send us a message on Facebook, send us an email, send us
throw a rock through our window with a note on it.
But don't, because windows are expensive. So
and it's cold.
Maybe throw it on our front porch.
Yeah. Or just stick it in our mailbox and put the little flag up. And
yeah, send us a carrier pigeon.
Yeah. There's lots of ways you can get a hold of us. And let us know your ideas or your opinions or any story suggestions. Hopefully we'll have some more mysterious things for you soon.
And if you have any personal stories, we'd love to start doing listener episodes in January. So if we could start compiling those, that would be fantastic.
Just as soon as we get enough. If it's not January, it's not January, but hopefully it can be just as soon as we get enough information.
It doesn't have to be true crime. It could be mystery. It could be paranormal. It could be religious miracles. Whatever, something interesting. You just want to tell us a story. That's all right with us.
Tell us a little story.
So anyway, you can follow us on every social media platform at Twisted and Mysterious, with the exception of X, because X had to be difficult because our name is too long for their ads.
Twisty and Misty.
Oh, maybe I should have consulted you
with me
first. I did Twist Miss Pod, and so it's TWISMYSPOD, Twist Miss Pod. But anyway,
we may be changing it to Twisty and Misty.
We might. I guess we'll see. Anyway, everything else is at Twisted and Mysterious, and I guess we'll see you next week.
All right. So stay tuned for our next episode, and remember that people are gross and don't get murdered.
Bye.
Bye.